Hello, cuties, and welcome to a review of how my HRCYED 2.0 went and my plans for HRCYED 3.0. So we're just going to go over my stats, what I read for every single prompt, how I did. I did end up finishing it to an extent. I had to rearrange a few things from my original plan, so please don't be mad at me for doing that. I know people like to be mad at me for a lot of sillier reasons. So please don't be mad at me for that one. Thank you. Okay. But we're going to talk about my HRCYED 2.0 and everything I'm reading for my 3.0. I am gamifying my 3.0. We did kind of do my dice rolls on a previous live stream. I've had to since adjust a couple of those as well based on what my actual goals are for 3.0. But before we get into anything 3.0, let's look at what we did for 2.0. So I read a total of 224 different books for my HRCYED. Everybody on this list counts for something. I had to double up a couple times, but everybody counts in some way. I read 77,374 pages, listened to 1,943 and a half hours, spent $960.48. Not in this last year. That's the value of the books for like the prices that I got them for. So not that bad. It took me 3.6 average days per book, 3.66 average rating of every book, 345.42 average pages of each book, and average 10.98 hours per audio book. I gathered myself 2,411 points in total, not using any of them because I gave them all to you guys. My most common acquisition year was 2025, and total books that were read in fantasy settings that were not in this world was 83, and I read the most in March, which seems to be a very common thing for me. I don't know why, but it is. Also, let's get this a little bigger so you can actually see some of these steady stats here. All right, so obviously I read the most in the US, 7 in Canada, 34 in the UK, 3 in Japan. I don't know where we're at with everybody here, but we read a lot all over the place. You know, I hit every continent like I wanted to. I have one in Turkey, Romania. You know, I read a lot all over. My most common states, as we know, New York and California. Washington also got up in there. Illinois with 7, 6 in Texas, and then a bunch all around the U.S. So here's where I didn't hit. So I need to prioritize reading in those states that I didn't actually get. Crazy stuff. For my publishers, most commonly read from Penguin, it looks like, was 60, 26.8%. I did 10.3% were self-pub, 4.9% were Simon & Schuster, 2.2% was Sourcebooks, 11.6% was HarperCollins, 13.8% were independent presses, 40 books, 17.9% was Macmillan, and 12.1% was Hachette. You know, it's a pretty even spread, I would say, overall. Not too bad. It says I have 4 rereads, and that was probably Twilight, because y'all made me read Twilight again. But otherwise, I read everything new. Usually this is a full circle, because I hardly ever reread. With my series, I read 96 standalones. I started 57. I finished 23. Hey! In progress 21, and I DNF'd 22 series. 5 of them were up to publication. So you can add that to the finished for the sake of saying it. I predominantly read on audio. 161 audiobooks, 31 paperbacks, 18 audio arcs, so I did specify between them, 6 ebooks, 3 hardcovers, and 5 e-arcs. Boy, do I hate reading ebooks. That is my least favorite. Are my genres. I have such a smattering of genres, but fantasy romance usually dominates. Fantasy romance, contemporary romance, cozy fantasy, historical romance, romantasy, historical fantasy, a lot of fantasies. I'm a fantasy girly, okay? But a lot. And then let's look over. We've got the prompts. So here's everything I needed for all of these prompts. So my readathon, I needed so many. I needed so many for those. That's the thing. Challenge yourself is what killed me. That was the one that hurt the most. For my covers, the most commonly were multicolors. Otherwise, it was blue, 36 blue, 29 black, and 17 purple was the next most common that we had. I read mostly adult, 122 adult, 89 young adult, and 13 middle grade. Most common publication year was 2025, so I was reading a lot of my new releases. 51 of those. Who's next in line? 2024, 21? Yeah, looks like it. 2022, 22, actually. I read a lot of 2022s, apparently. And my top authors was unfortunately Stephanie Meyer and Ruby Dixon for the project that I have stalled on. But we also have Kore Yamazaki for Ancient Magus Bride, and Ursula K. Le Guin for rating all of Earthsea that I had to for the series. But yeah, those are my top authors apparently for a kid, which makes me sad. But yeah, so here's what I actually read for each one. For my 100, we did Barbarian Mind by Ruby Dixon, The Prince's Heart by Ben Chalfin. For 200, How to Date a Prince by Hayden Stone. For 300, The Queen's Resistance by Rebecca Ross. For 400, Something Something Magic by Casey Galanders. For 500, The Just Crown by Sarah Hashem. For 600, and Breaking Dawn for over 700. In my 24-hour readathon, I read only 4 books, which was a letdown for myself, but I'm so tired. I'm even really, really tired right now, and I have to go to work in an hour, so that's fine. But I listened to A Daughter of the Trolls that day, which is 254 pages, and then I read Third Shift Society, The Taming of the Clueless, and Dead Endia Volume 1, and that's all I was able to get through. For my subgenres of choice, the genre we chose was romance. In the beginning of the year, we did a live stream randomly choosing these. So we have a horror romance, which was Haunting of William Thorne, A Forgery of Fate for a fantasy romance, Tusk Love for romantasy. I distinguish between these two for very specific reasons. The Austen Affair with a historical romance / a time travel romance. Life and Death for paranormal romance, and Ice Planet Barbarians for a sci-fi romance. For my series Staircase, we did determine everything but the standalone, which I chose The Devil Makes 3, which, hey, if you need a 3 in the title for 3.0, there you go. The duology we picked was The Initial Insult and The Last Laugh, which are retellings of Edgar Allan Poe's works. For my trilogy, we did Dating Dr. Bill, Tastes Like Shakar, and Marriage in Mossy, which are all in the If Shakespeare Was Naughty. More remixes, very loose on that. I honestly wouldn't even call them remixes based on what I read. I don't even know. Bare inspirational. It was like a Shakespeare book was sitting next to the books while they were being written, and that's how close they actually got. And then my 4+ book series was Earthsea. So I read the first 4 books in Earthsea. For my award season, I chose Spiffbo, which I didn't write here, I realized, but I chose Spiffbo. So for my winner, I read Orconomics. For my semifinalists, we have Throne of the Dark. We also had The Last Luminian and Cursed Cocktails for semifinalists. For my finalists, I read The Combat Codes, which was excellent. And then for my entrants, I chose Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard and Miss Landon and Albernale. These are all from different years. But yeah, I would say probably Throne of the Dark was my favorite of all of these books, I would say. And then followed by Combat Codes, followed by Cursed Cocktails. Probably. That's probably what I would say. For my TBR game, I played After Hours 3 times because I played the version where I wanted to lose all my lives. And because of the lag, it made me play it 3 times, essentially. So we had so many books for this. The Witch Would Not for a favorite author, Gothic. Why We Love and Hate Twilight by Sarah Elizabeth Gallagher for nonfiction fall spooky vibes. For my cold word in the title, romance, we had a double up here for Ice Planet Barbarians. For BookTube, worst book of the previous year, for Gothic, I did One Dark Window. Plant-Based Bride, didn't like that one, it seems. For a nonfiction last chance book, we have the Book of Kells, a guide book that I got when I went to Ireland for my sister's wedding years ago. Yeah. For romance and new author, we did Arthur and Teddy Are Coming Out. Mystery thriller favorite author, we did Mr. Magic by Kirsten White. For Gothic Demons, I read In Every Generation, Buffy Remix. Fantasy sci-fi cold word in the title. I read A Fate So Cold. Historical TikTok read. I did Hungerstone. For an indie thriller, I did Parasite Eve, which is more indie. It's in thriller and horror, but I counted it. Historical next in the series, I did Sanctuary for Seers by Kathleen Baldwin. Backlist author for literary contemporary, we did The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. A short literary contemporary, we did The Virgin Suicides. Instagram pick for middle grade, we did This Was Our Pact. Romance, a short romance, we did Barbarian's Prize. Finish in one day horror, we did Tender as the Flesh. Historical readathon prompt, random readathon prompts, was Babylonia. Horror royalty, we did Dowry of Blood. Middle grade foreign country, Finn Family Moomin Troll. Romance intimidating read, I can talk, was Serpent in the Wings of Night. Nonfiction with a titular character in the title, Young, Damned, and Fair, The Life of Catherine Howard. Literary contemporary hall, a book, I did Moon Soul. Fantasy sci-fi steal from a TBR, I did Small Favors by Aaron Craig. Literary contemporary, The Disabled Author, I did Turtles All the Way Down, because John Green also suffers from OCD. Romance author, Underrated, A Werewolf's Guide to Seducing a Vampire, by Sarah Hawley, who I think is underrated. Historical BIPOC, we did The Magnolia Sword. Gothic Gothtober Throwback, we did Annihilation. Literary contemporary highly rated, we did Letters to the Lost. And romance with a hot word in the title, I did I Hear the Sunspot, because I think sunspot's a pretty hot word to me. For the last 10 years, in 2015, we did Barbarian Lover. 2016, Viridian Gate Online Cataclysm. 2017, Down Among the Sticks and Bones. 2018, Artificial Condition. 2019, The Magnolia Sword. 2020, Dungeon Crawler Carl. A Psalm for the Wild Built for 2020. A Wilderness of Stars for 2022. In Memoriam for 2023. Gwen and Art Are Not in Love for 2024. Wild Reverence for 2025. And How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days for 2026. For my adaptations, I did the modern retelling of Carmilla for Hungerstone. Also I doubled up. For a musical, because I read Twilight, I also watched Dusk, A Bite-Sized Love Story, which is hilarious. It's a hilarious Twilight musical. For a graphic novel adaptation, I did Wait Till Helen Comes. For a play, I read the playbook for Rise Red River. Highly recommend. For a TV show, we watched Heated Rivalry. I'm about to read it, too. For a web series, I watched The Attic, which is a Little Women web series on YouTube. You can just definitely check it out. I did enjoy it overall. For an animation, I watched The Wild Robot. I also have the books. I did a lot of watching in this one, which is odd for me. And then for a movie, I just chose New Moon because I needed to throw New Moon somewhere. There you go. Right. For the disability challenge, I did A Mother's Guide to the Apocalypse, which features a main character with dementia. It has multiple POVs. The Autistic's Guide to Self-Discovery for autism. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. Depression is the only confirmed one in this book. That's the only confirmed disability. But there are arguments for many, many more. But the author specifically is like, it's ambiguous, which I didn't like. Anyway, I also didn't like that book. Breathe and count back from 10. We have hip dysplasia. And A Werewolf's Guide to Seducing a Vampire is anxiety. For my heritage months, I read Exostar for Disability Pride, The Bewitching for Hispanic Heritage, Never Whistle at Night for Indigenous Heritage, Immortal Dark for Black History Month, Magic Lessons for Women's History, Where Sleeping Girls Lie for Arab Heritage, Thistlefoot for Jewish Heritage, Spirits Abroad for AAPI Heritage, and Reclamation for Pride. In my translations, I read Tender as the Flesh for Spanish, Parasite Eve for Japanese, Rise Red River for, I'm going to mess it up, Anishinaabe, which is an indigenous language, Shaihu Umar for Nigerian, and Finn Family Movement Troll for Finnish. Around the world, there it goes. I'm like, load. I didn't do the bonus Antarctica. That's why it was a bonus, but I didn't get to Antarctica. For North America, I did the Overstory. For South America, I did Crooked Plow. For Africa, we did Shaihu Umar. For Europe, we did The Witchwood Knot. For Asia, we did The Suffering. And for Australia, we did 10,000 Thorns, which Susanna Rowantree is an Australian author. For the Even Bigger Rainbow, we did The Mortal Queen. Recommended reading for orange, Dungeon Crawler Carl for yellow, Catabasis for green, A Land So Wide for teal, Steelheart for light blue, Seer of the Strait for blue, The Forever Song for purple, My Vampire +1 for pink, The Court That Bleeds Gold for black, The Gifted Society for white, 4 Ruin Realms for gold, and This Princess Kills Monsters for 7+ colors on the cover. For my quote, we chose the quote, randomly picked it, which is from the 1995 Pride and Prejudice of, "My dear Mr. Bennet, nothing you say shall ever vex me again. I'm sorry to hear it." That's the quote. So we have My Roommate is a Vampire, My Dear Henry, Mr. Magic, The Scandalous Confessions of Lydia Bennet, which, You Did Nothing Wrong, Right Beside You, Say You'll Remember Me, I hated that book. We Shall Be Monsters, Ever After, How to Vex a Vampire, surprisingly way more fun than I thought it was going to be. I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me, Begin Again, I'm the Girl, Feeling Sorry for Celia, Letters to the Lost, I Hear the Sunspot, and How It All Blew Up. There we go. For my spooky creatures, we did The Good Vampire's Guide to Blood and Boyfriends for Vampire. We did Bride for Werewolf Shifter. Arcana, The Cursed Fate for Magic Users. Tale of the Seasons Weaver for Fae Folk. Ghost Business for Spirits. Out of the Blue for Merfolk. The Nightshade God for Zombies. And The Night and the Moth for Other Creature Gargoyles. For my Become the Avatar, I did do both versions. So we have The Spear Cuts Through Water, A Wizard of Earthsea. Codex Black, which is Fire Among Clouds is the title of this one. Codex Black is the series. And then Air for Air. For on the cover, we did Rainbow Valley having water on the cover. This was our Pact for Earth on the cover. Lord of the Flies for Fire on the cover. And the Guardians of Dreamdark for Air on the cover. For my Readathon challenge, we did Realmathon. So we have a book rec you've gotten more than once. Color of Magic. Everyone tells me to read Discworld. The is in the title, but not the first word. Fable for the End of the World. New to TBR, we did Lucas. I got it this year. A poll pick, we did Library of Hellebore, which y'all chose. More than one POV, we have What Fury Brings. A wealthy character, Embrace the Serpent. Favorite trope, A Dawn of Onyx, which has my kind of reluctant friends to enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers kind of thing. Morally gray character, Appetite by Tycho, which isn't actually out yet, but I had to read it because I was the editor. I'm counting it. Fast-paced read, A Good Running Away. Even numbers of letters in the title, Camp Zero with 8. Multiple people on the cover, The Ancient Magus Bride Volume 9. Title with a title, The Ancient Magus Bride Volume 10, because that's her title as The Ancient Magus Bride. Book has sibling characters, Spider Island, also just now releasing in like a week at this point. Very, very, very good. I was a beta reader for it. Higher rating than the last book. We have The Night and the Moth for whatever was before it. 5-star book from a host, Annihilation. A 5-star prediction, Catabasis. Audiobook, I did The Haunting of William Thorne. Physically owned book, Shiloh, a special edition, Isles of the Emberdark. Character with a criminal background, Children of Solo. Violent word in the title, This Princess Kills Monsters. 2-word title, Spirits Abroad. The title uses the word of, Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard. Title font is a dark color, This Is How You Lose Time War. Title is under the author's name on the cover, The Whispering Dark. Alliterative title, Assassin's Apprentice. Author uses his initial, Miss Landon and Auburnale. Steal a book off of TBR, Bat Eater and Other Names of Cora Zhang. A 5-star read was A Forgery of Fate. All 5 vowels in the title, The Good Vampire's Guide to Blood and Boyfriends. An author you've read from before, The Ancient Magus Bride Volume 11. A book with your next boyfriend in it is Heartless Hunter. Although that's such a weird prompt for me as an ace person. I'm like, yeah, sure, I like this one. That was very loosely done. A book found on a list, recommended reading. Character is hiding a secret right beside you. A book with politics, The Listeners. Fictional setting, Barbarian Alien. Non-human main character, Exostar. Plants on the cover, The Ancient Magus Bride, Volume 8. Ba-boom. For animals, we have Pride and Puppies for dog. Brandon Sanderson's, we did Isle of the Emberdark for the magical parrots. The Brightness Between Us for yaks. They had yaks on the island, on the planet. Guardians of the Gahul, we have owls, of course. And Babylonia, we have jaguars. For the queer alphabet, the even queer alphabet, we have The Secret Life of Country Gentlemen for gay, Fable for the End of the World, Fable at the End of the World. Is it? I always get it wrong. Fable for the End of the World for lesbian. Sorcery and Small Magics for bisexual. A Gentleman's Gentleman for trans. Cattywampus for intersex. God of Fury, surprisingly, was asexual rap. Chaos King for polyamory. Out of the Blue for non-binary. And A Lady for All Seasons for gender fluid. For my HRCYED prompt was, we chose at random, we did 5 books from around the world. So we have Deerstalker for Germany, The Suffering for Japan, 1,000 Ships for Turkey, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil for Spain, and Under a Dancing Star for Italy. For the BIPOC challenge, we have the Nightblood Prince for Chinese, Sisters in the Wind for Indigenous, One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against Us for Egyptian, Ruined Realms for Korean, Chaos King for Black, The Library of Hellebore for Malaysian, Embrace the Serpent for South Asian, Breathe and Come Back from 10, Peruvian, The Forever Song for Japanese, and The Merciless Ones for Sierra Leonean. New releases. We read January. We did Hollow by Selena Myers. The Beast We Raise for February. The Faraway Inn for March. We Burn So Bright for April. A Fate Forged in Fire for May, which I did mine in 2025. The Listeners for June. The Enchanted Greenhouse for July. A Mother's Guide to the Apocalypse for August. Sisters in the Wind for September. Hazelthorn for October. Strax Bad Day for November. Highly recommend. And Reclamation for December. For the challenge yourself, I had been moving, so we picked a bunch of books from a box. This is the one I adjusted to being like books that I've had on my TBR forever and finally read. So we read Wings of Ebony, More Than We Can Tell, A History of Wild Places, A People's Future of the United States, The Gentleman's Book of Vices, A Rule Book for Restless Rogues, Forestborn, A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, Rilla of Ingleside, Ever After, The Pellucid Witch, Ashes of Gold, A Daughter of the Trolls, Dactyl Hill Squad, Freedom Fire, A Game for Fox and Squirrels, Mad and Bad Real Heroines of the Regency, Revenant X, Talking to Dragons, A Faux Love Story, Somewhere in the Deep, Swords Point, The Calculating Stars, The City Inside, The Combat Codes, The Extraordinaries, The Gifted Society, The Golden Hourglass, The Last Luminian, Modern Fairy Tales, which is all 3 books. I hated them. Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, Vampires, Hearts, and Other Dead Things. This is like the worst book, I think, of my whole reading experience. And I read Twilight. Wildbound and Unseen Magic. For my nonfiction, we read Dope Sick by Beth Macy, The Autistic's Guide to Self-Discovery, The Book of Kells, How to Survive the End of the World, and Real Queer America. And finally, for Q's, Reviews, and Recs, I basically chose ones that you guys told me to do. So I did Dark Rise, The Dragon Codex, and Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint Volume 1 is what I did for that one. And that's my HRCYED. Ta-da! Let's talk about 3.0. Nobody actually cares anymore about 2.0, right? Right? You guys don't care. So we're going to go over to 3.0. I've already read 5 books for it. And like I said, we're gamifying. I tried to hold true to the roles as much as possible. I am also doing 2 versions. I'm doing one that I'm like, here's my pre-planned set. And then I'm doing another one of things that are not pre-planned but end up reading anyway and seeing where I can put them. And if I need to, then I'll match them together. But I don't think I'm going to. We say that now. But yeah, so I pre-planned my whole thing. Choose your party. We have the Spellcaster for Sorcerer, Paladin's Hope for Paladin, the Starving Saints for a Druid, Pantomime for Bard, and Of Wolves and Stags for Monk. I'm loose on this one. I think this one has a character who is like shut off away and focused on themselves to like not cause issues. And I think that's very monk-like, but also can kick butt, which is monk-like. So this is a loose one. It might change. For my periodic table, let's make this bigger so y'all can see these. We have Golden Curse for gold. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, I tried to pull all of these as much as I could first from my NetGalley, then my 2026 picks, then my current series, or the Eldritch TBR, and my current series, and then indie books. That's where my level of moving things around is. So anyway, Golden Curse for gold, Always Carry a Silver Cross for silver, Heart of Iron for iron, Mercury Rising for Mercury, and Neon Gods for neon. Ba-ba. For familial terms, we have The Seventh Sister, Father Material, The Swan's Daughter, Nobody's Baby, and Son of the Morning. For regional traipsing, we're going all around. We have The Last Empress of France for Western Europe, I Hear the Sunspot for Asia, or East Asia, Brother Song for Pacific Northwest, I Hope You Get This Message for the American West, and Appalachia, we have A Lonely Broadcast. For curriculum, we're doing A Bookseller in Madrid for history, Self-Portrait for art, Spread Me for science, A Poet Empress for English, and A Song of Sin and Salvation for music. For my states, we're doing Slayers of Old for Massachusetts, Alatsoi for Texas, or is it Latso? I don't know. I'll probably listen to the audiobook and it'll tell me. Minimum Wage Magic for Michigan, Morbid Curiosities for Oregon, and Phoenix for Colorado. Ta-da! For book section, this was so hard to pre-plan. But we have a book, it's on its way here, it's called Kappa Child, which apparently the main character in that is obsessed with Little House on the Prairie, which I've never read. So there we go. 4 secret prompts are back. We have Read Outside, which I've already done. I read I Hear the Sunspot, volume 2. Pun in the title, Sense and Suitability, which, for people asking about this, like, the pun in the title confuses so many people, and it makes me laugh. I just mean a play on words, like something that clearly was meant to be playing off of something else. That's why. Bones Beneath My Skin. I just really want to read this book, so I will be doing a craft while listening to this book. Leo Martino Steals His Heart for first and last name in the title. I'll get around to it later tag. We have The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. A duplicate title, we have Cinder by D.N. Bryn, because we all know Cinder by Marissa Meyer. That counts. A childhood miss. I didn't get to read these as a kid, and that's Lone Wolf by Catherine Lansky, I think. Or Lasky, not Lansky, Lasky. For Joseph's Coat, because everyone likes to hear me do, it was red and yellow and green and brown and scarlet and black and ochre and peach and ruby and olive and violet and fawn, lilac and gold and chocolate and mauve, cream and crimson and silver and rose and azure and lemon and russet and gray and purple and white and pink and orange and blue. I obviously chose lilac for the lilac people. For doom scrolling on my TikTok, because I follow Haley, is my friend, I often see Blood of the Raj on my TikTok. For a movement on the cover, ignore all previous instructions. We have the rocket ship moving, vehicles count, people and vehicles. That's your movement. For most recent acquisition, it just came in the mail, and that's Heartstopper Volume 6, and I literally am going to read it soon in a second. Well, no, because I have to go to work, but I'll bring it with me to work and read it on my break, probably. And last name is a first name. We have Sight Unseen by Alexis Marie. For my cover styles, 4 very different cover styles. We have How Long Till Black Future Month, which is a real person on the cover. A Rip Through Time has a double exposure. Higher Magic is my foliage floral border. And then The Light Under the Shadow Wing for a digital painted non-AI. Very important, no AI. For my Count the Titles in the Words, we have Devout for 1, Annie Bot for 2, Beasts of War for 3, To Clutch a Razor for 4, The Maiden and Her Monster for 5, How to Help a Hungry Werewolf for 6, Let's Give 'em Pumpkin to Talk About for 7, The Library at the Edge of the Wood for 8, How That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, or Saved a Human, Demon's the other book, for 9, and The Entirely True Story of the Fantastical Mesmerist Nora Gray for 10. For characters to become authors, I've already done my chain here, or I've pre-planned it. We're reading Japanese Gothic, which main character in one of the POVs is Lee. So we go to My Fair Frauds, which is by Lee Kelly, and the main character in My Fair Frauds is named Alice. So A Beast Slinks Towards Alice by Alice Evelyn Yang. There we go. For Shiritori, I've also pre-planned this. We're doing Aicha, and then A Wraith Beneath the Tides. You do not have to use your and the. You can choose to. You'll see that I choose to do it, and then I choose to ignore those. So then we go to Sonora, and we have the Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre, and Epics Etched in Echoes. For the HRCYED mashup, we rolled this one, and so I'm doing the completed webcomics and Around the World. So we're doing Aya of Yob City for Africa, The Four of Them for Argentina, Purple Hyacinth for Europe, This Fluffy Love for Sri Lanka, and Check Please for the US. Or for North America, I should say. Da-da-da. All right, titular digits. We have 1, Last Gasp, 2, Peas in a Pod, 3, Shattered Souls, Darker by 4, 5, Lords of Dusk, 1 word, 6 letters, The Genesis of 7, Kiss number 8, Brighter Than 9, The Tenfold Tenets, and 100 Rules for Living to 100 by Dick Van Dyke. Ha ha. For my rainbow titles, we have Red Winter, Orange, which I've already read, and I'm so sorry, Asra. I don't like it. Across the Green Grass Fields, I'm going to have to get to this one because I've only read the first 2 books in this series. Mushroom Blues, The Purple Door District, Witty in Pink, Black Sun, The White Octopus Hotel, Hemlock in Silver, and A Taste of Gold and Iron. For my animal families, we are doing Both Can Be True for canines, The Great Work for amphibian, we have a salamander, Birth of a Dynasty for pachyderms, because there's a elephant right there, The Last Tiger, where's a tiger? You can't see it very well as small, but there's a tiger there, for feline, The Jackass in Class for equine, and By the Orchid and the Owl for avian. Ta-da! For my biomes, we have Motus for desert, The River She Became for river, 7 Days in Tokyo for urban, The Keeper of Lonely Spirits for countryside, Broken Rain for the beach, that's islands, and Compound Fracture for a conifer forest. For remix, we have a gender bent, This Wretched Beauty, which is gender bent Dorian Gray. Cinder House, we have a magical version for Cinderella. The Book of G, which is a villain's POV. It's Gaston's POV after the fall. Most Ardently is a Make It Gayer, which is Lizzie Bennett is a trans man now. And then Unequal Affection, which is a major plot shift. This is where Lizzie says yes to the first proposal instead. And that's how it shifts the plot. So I didn't do a full Pride and Prejudice. It would be funny, though, if I do just naturally do that anyway. But there you have it. For food pyramid, we have a Fellowship of Bakers and Magic. For fruit, because there's like a strawberry right there. The Tea Dragon Society, which I've already read for beverage. For sweets and desserts, we have Paris Dalencourt is About to Crumble. Giant cake on the cover. The Celestial Banquet has noodles for grains. And Chef's Kiss has vegetables, which aren't real, but we know. For weather on the cover, we have I Hear the Sunspot Volume 4, which is rain. Whirlwind for tornado. Bitter Souls for snow. Crack in the Edge of the World for earthquake. This is the San Francisco earthquake in the background there. Tall Water for tsunami. And A Legacy of Stars for thunderstorm. You can see the lightning and clouds are all right there. For It's Your Birthday, we're doing The Gilded Heiress for my birthstone, which is a ruby or moonstone, but this one had rubies on the cover. Birth Month publication To Dance the Moon and Stars, which comes out this month. Deep Light for Frances Harding was my zodiac, because there's a crab right there. The Butcher of the Forest for my Chinese zodiac. I am unfortunately a rabbit. There is a rabbit right here. For my flower, one of my flowers is a water lily. I'm doing Immortal, which has all these water lilies here. For my tree, Oak King, Holly King, I'm actually the cusp. I am the end of oak, and then the next day is holly, so this actually works really well. And for my name meaning Stephanie means crowned one, so I'm doing Crown Chasers. For my backlist authors, we're trying to read through Kendra Merritt, really. But I have The King of the Tower and Shroud for a Bride, both by her. I Could Give You the Moon by Anne Liang. Take a Hint, Danny Brown for Talia Hibbert. And Sea of Charms for my NetGalley for Sarah Beth Durst, because I'm very excited about it. For Poketo Monsters, I must endeavor to acquire these creatures. We have Thorn Season for my grass type, Firefight for my fire type, Witch Lore for my ghost type, Tideborn for my water type, and the Poison Paradox for my poison type. For my anthology of authors, I had to do a queer one, so I chose Night of the Living Queers, and we're going to be reading The Taking of Jake Livingston, The Midnight Kingdom, Damned If You Do, You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, She Is a Haunting, and The Forest Demands Its Due. All these authors are in this anthology. And finally, for my second chances and hidden gems, I have a Formerly Unhulled Leviathan by Scott Westerfield. Deuces Are Wild for an ugly cover. I love this series so much, but I hate the covers. The Devil and Mrs. Gooch by Oliver Darkshire for less than 100 reviews as of choosing this book. Less than 100. Somebody's outside. I bet it's a package. For my 1-star review, we have Daedalus is Dead, because I saw a really funny 1-star review of it. And then for my random find, and then he pressed play, which I have on NetGalley. And that's my 3.0. Well, there you have it. That was my 2.0. And this is what I plan to read for 3.0. We'll see how well I do. Let me know, are you also going to read any of the books that I've mentioned? Did you read any of the books I've mentioned? Let me know if you want me to do, like, hey, what all the books that I read for 2.0 qualify for 3.0, because I could do that too, since I've read them and definitely remember everything about them, because I have a great memory. All right, I have to go to work now. Sorry for Paul barking in the background. I'm gonna go. Bye. Shall we? Okay. Make myself small and insignificant, because it's true.